Welcome back to the fourth episode of the Behind the Bricks podcast. Today's interesting topic will be equipment, and if it matters or not. Me and Tom go over our equipment list and see what we use to make a brick film. So, without further ado, roll the tape.
Hello and welcome back to another Behind the Bricks podcast. I am joined by my co-producer, co-creator, Jared from @DudeBrick.
Hello. Welcome to this episode about equipment. Another fun topic that
Week 4, it's equipment week.
That we all enjoy talking about and all enjoy experimenting and learning about. So this will be a cool little experimental fun topic we're going to talk about today. I'm excited.
Yeah, and of course equipment is quite a broad topic, so we're gonna try to cover as much as we can. I guess we'll start out with the physical equipment, and then later on we'll move into software and things like that. So I think maybe we should start off with the core component, you might say, of making a brick film. In fact, any kind of film.
That's
and
true.
that is in fact the camera.
I guess it's important.
Yeah. I mean, you might say it's. You could probably do its job with a lamp or something, but.
Yeah, I don't think you need it, honestly, but it depends. It depends how you feel, I guess.
Yeah. So, I guess do you want to run us through your previous cameras right up to your current camera? What you use in your films?
Oh man, I have used a wild, abundant list. It goes on and on.
Yeah.
I guess I started out with some crappy RCA camcorder that was able to take blurry pictures. Used that for a while. Then I used my brother's it was like this camera that Forest Fire used. It was like his first camera that he used, and it was very similar to that. And so I was inspired and used that. And then got this Sony Handycam. Kind of nice, but blurry as well. Again. Then I used this Canon PowerShot XX40, something like that. That was pretty good. Had autofocus though, so it kind of sucked. And then from there, I think I used a webcam for a little bit, some Logitech one. And then after that, I think I used a T2i for a little bit, the DSLR. Then I sold that. And then now I have a Logitech C920 webcam that is, very nice. Able to get in small places, small nook and crannies. A lot of people use it for close-up shots that they can't achieve with DSLRs, but it does its job, and I enjoy using it. And the movability of it, and the fact that I don't have to use a battery is also a plus. So it's pretty cool, and I kind of like it. Don't know how long I'll use it for, but yeah, it's nice. What about you?
That's good actually. Because I'm a DSLR user, so we can have a nice discussion here. So when I started out, I think I borrowed my mum's old Sony webcam. Then I used a couple of tiny little digital cameras for a couple of years. Then my original big Batman film was actually shot on my granddad's DSLR. I think it was quite nice, but it was an autofocus job, which was a little bit tricky. And then I got a tiny little, it was actually pretty decent. It was a Samsung W100, I believe it was.
Interesting.
It had autofocus, but it had a really, really nice macro lens, which enabled me to get some really literally I could get the lens right next to the minifigure's face and it would be in focus. So that was really nice, but unfortunately, up to this point, all the cameras I've used haven't had remotes, so I had to press the shutter every time, which, as we're gonna get onto, is not what you want in an ideal world.
No, not at all.
And then from there, I moved on to, I think I was in college at the time, so it must have been about 4 years ago, blimey. I moved on to my current camera, which is the Canon 1200D, I think. And I think that's equivalent to like a T2i for you Americans, I believe.
Let me look that up. I believe that's right, but we'll see about you Brits.
Yeah, so currently I'm a DSLR user, and you're a webcam user, Jared. So
ooh, that's
good.
It's a T5, actually. T5.
Oh, it's a T5. T5
for
nice.
us Americanos.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, in regards to the DSLR webcam debate, I don't think there's much debate at all. I prefer DSLR all the way. I just don't, have the money to go and purchase one for brick filming itself, because I have a mirrorless camera that I use for my filmmaking outside of brick filming, but I still believe DSLRs is the better camera and they're better for brick filming. But for younger people that don't have that kind of money, webcams are perfect. Like, they are perfect for you. So do not worry about trying to purchase something that is way out of your budget. Just use what you can. Because I think
absolutely.
A lot of people, there's a lot of apps on your phone. iPhones are amazing these days. They're able to do a lot of things, and stop motion animation is one of them. And there's tons of apps. I think like Stop Motion Studio, or I think the official Lego stop motion app exists. And there's a lot of things you can download onto your phone itself and use that. So don't fret. A DSLR is not necessary. You can use a webcam.
Absolutely.
You can use an iPhone. Like, you can use your freaking iPad. Like, those things are such amazing. They're so good, and they have pretty good camera quality. Like, much better camera quality that I had, 10 years ago. So
yeah,
be blessed that you have something good in your hands, in your pocket. Like, you can use anything these days and still make a very well-made brick film.
Fun fact: the image potentially you're looking at now, which is in this video, was actually taken on my phone. So I've just got a Galaxy S5. So there you go.
It looks so good. I can't even see it, but it looks so good.
Hopefully it looks good. And I haven't remembered it incorrectly. But I think definitely though, webcams have definitely got some pros to them that you can't get with a DSLR.
Oh, that's very true.
You mentioned, Jared, it's sometimes easier to get the webcam into the set.
Absolutely.
It's smaller. I like the fact that you can plug them in. You don't have to worry about batteries, because batteries is one of those things that battery charge can really creep up on you and potentially ruin a shot. Because if you're shooting a scene for an hour and a half, and you don't want to move the camera, you really don't want your battery to run out, because then you just have to start again, I guess.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that movability and that getting in those little nook and crannies, that plays a huge part. And I think that's why a lot of people use the Logitech C920 and I think Logitech 9000, if I remember correctly. Those are definitely some of the bigger Logitech webcams, and a lot of people will love it because it's able to move around your set. It's able to pick up with literally one finger, and you're able to move the camera up and down. You can change. You can go left and right via the Logitech webcam settings. You can do a lot of things, and you can change your white balance and your exposure and your gain and all that jazz in literally an app on your computer, and it's quite amazing. Does it compare to a DSLR changing your ISO and aperture? No, not even close. I prefer the DSLR all the way, but I just still think the webcam still holds up, and it has a lot of pros. It does have some cons, but it has a lot of pros, and I think it's able to match up with a fully DSLR shot brick film. Like, there are some really great brick films out there shot on a webcam, and there are some great brick films shot on a DSLR. And sometimes they don't even compare, but there are times where the webcam does overcome that DSLR brick film, and honestly, it's more in the story you tell, and the more how it's shot, and the more how it is edited, than it is what it's shot with.
Yeah, I guess the message is, although equipment is important, it's not so important, or is it as important as you'd think?
Right. Yeah.
It's just important that you have a camera there, right? What's your focus distance like on the webcam you use?
I think that's definitely one of the cons with it. Like, if you get, it's a wide webcam lens, because they're made for chatting via Skype or Google
Nice.
Hangouts, so you have to get fairly close with your webcam, which is possible. You can get up to, I think, 1 inch or a little less than that and still be in focus. And DSLRs have a lot of trouble with that, especially if they don't have like macro filters or anything like that. So you're able to get pretty far back, but I would not suggest going too far back, because that would definitely reveal the outsides of your set. And
Yeah, you gotta be careful with that. And
yeah,
obviously going further back, you're gonna have to build your sets bigger. So that's
especially so you kind of have to be more aware and build what's in frame. I guess that's a key tip right there.
Yeah.
So you gotta know where to place your camera first, and then build around that. But that's another topic. Yeah, webcams are great. I think you can do a lot of things via focal wise, and you can get fairly close, which most DSLRs can't these days.
Yeah, and that brings me on to, so I've got a pretty good selection of macro lenses actually, and I think the word lens sort of it makes you think sort of quite expensive price tags, and I don't think that necessarily has to be the case, because my macro lens set it's almost like you screw them onto the main lens in the front, and they're really small, and yeah, they might only do 95% of the job of a proper like expensive macro lens, but I'm pretty happy with the effect. I think I've got like 2 times, 4 times, 10 times, and I guess probably a 1 times as well.
Yeah, when I used to use DSLR like a year ago, I bought these Vivitar macro filters, and I bought them for $13 on Amazon, and
Yeah.
I still use them whenever I can, but like, they're cheap, but they do the job, like you said. It's not 100%, it's like 90, 95, but that's better than 10, and so, and it really helps get you that webcam look, which is kind of odd saying, like, you want your DSLR to get that close-up feeling to it. And I think these macro filters, depending on the brand, they really help. And I know a lot of people these days use them, and they're very useful. And I highly suggest that if you do use a DSLR, that I recommend taking a look at these micro filters, depending on the brand, of course. But definitely take a look at them, because they're cheap and they do a great job. I think so.
Yeah, they afford a lot more opportunities for different angles, different ranges and stuff, which is really nice. And that sort of brings us on to another piece of relatively, I'd say, inexpensive kit. It doesn't have to be super expensive, and that is the tripod.
Oh yes, that's important.
Before we jump into the tripod chat, actually, it is the case, and it's the case for probably, I'd say, over half of my shots, that I don't actually use a tripod, so it's not in any way a necessity, but it can definitely help for some shots. Do you use a tripod much at all, Jared?
Webcams these days definitely have a what do you call it? A screw mount on the bottom of it, so you're able to screw it onto a tripod, which is very possible, but I do not suggest it, because tripods are pretty far away from your set, and that would mean putting your webcam very far away. But I do have like this small Joby Gorilla Pod, which is also a great purchase if you have a webcam. It's very small, and you're able to bend the legs around, and I can screw it on there, and it gives me like this high bird's eye view kind of look, and you can look at tall buildings, and it's very useful, and you can wrap it around your desk, or wrap it around your light pole, or something like that, and I think it's very useful because I've used it in a couple films already, and it's just two things you never see being put together, but a little bit of MacGyver work, and you're able to use something that no one ever thought would see these two things together at the same time, and it's very useful. And experimenting with these things really helps, and I think it's a good thing to experiment with two random things, I guess.
Yeah, nice. And of course, us being brick filmers, we like to play around with Lego a bit, and I have in the past.
That's an understatement, I think.
Yeah, I have in the past actually built my own sort of tripod or camera stand.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that can be really, really useful for some shots. Like, for example, a panning shot, or like maybe even like a dolly shot, where you need the camera to move sort of along a plane.
Mm-hmm.
You can get expensive sliders, but as the name suggests, they are quite expensive.
Yeah, that's true.
I do not use them myself, but if I was doing sort of a shot like that, I would definitely consider building something from Lego, and then you can see the increments, like per studs, how much you want to move the camera.
Oh yeah, I have used in my Lego Black Panther video I made a couple years ago. There's a one shot in there where it pans from left to right, from left to right, and I built this thing on my set, on my base plate. I use those flat pieces, like those 1x5s or 1x6s, and I laid those down, and with bricks
tiles.
The tiles and bricks on the outside, so I was able to slide the camera like a slider itself, and the webcam, I mean, and it gave it this really nice looking slide effect, this little pan, and that was done with literally just Lego pieces, and I didn't need an expensive slider or anything like that. Like, you can do a lot of things with Lego pieces, and most people don't know about. And I've built a lot of cages for my webcam, and there's a lot of layouts out there on the internet these days, and they're fairly easy to make, or you can just make your own. Because when I had a DSLR, I did make like a DSLR base plate cage for it, because I don't really approve of using a tripod, especially when you're on a second floor and when it's on carpet, because it kind of sinks down. So I really wanted to keep my camera on the desk at all times, so I built this Lego DSLR cage, and it really helped. And I think if you have a DSLR, I would totally recommend building your own and experimenting with those pieces.
So I'm glad you said the thing about the carpet, because that actually brings me onto my top tip. I actually for the shots where I'm using my tripod, the room where I shoot is fully carpeted. So the way I get around that, because like you say, sometimes the tripod can sink, and then when the shutter moves on the camera, it might shake the tripod a little bit.
Yeah.
You don't want the camera shake, obviously. So the way I get around this is I got this piece of wood. It's probably like a meter squared. Just put that on the floor, and then it acts as sort of a buffer. So if I put my tripod on top of that piece of wood, obviously there's still going to be a little bit of a sink, but because it's dispersed over the whole area of the wood, it's basically negligible. So that's a nice little simple trick. I mean, I think I just found that piece of wood around from some construction that was going on or something. They're pretty easy to come by, but that's a pretty good
tip right there.
Yeah.
Good tip.
Yeah. But for sure. And I think that sort of brings us on to camera shake. And there's other little tricks I think can help with camera shake. So obviously another key piece of equipment that everyone should use is tape. You want to make sure you tape down your sets.
Or if you don't even have tape, definitely use like sticky tack or blue tack or something like that. Those are definitely very, very helpful when it comes with sets, or even doing things your minifigure can't do. They're very versatile, and you can use them in a lot of different ways. So I definitely check out getting tack.
Tack is such a underrated, useful piece of equipment when it comes to making a brick film, for sure. Because if you need a minifigure to start leaning in ways that perhaps it's not going to be able to do on its own, tack can really save you some bother, I think there.
Totally.
Okay, so we've sort of discussed the major pieces of production equipment. I think physical equipment. We're now gonna sort of wind on to the software and the sort of computer aspect of the equipment. So do you want to run me through just list off the programs you use for the average Brickfilm, say?
Let's see. For me especially, I think now these days everyone wants to use Dragonframe, and Dragonframe is a great program for animation, and I was able to get it, and it's lovely, and I love it a lot, and it really helps, especially going back and forth between frames and seeing what you did wrong, or seeing what you need to do right. So it's very useful. I use the Adobe Creative Suite for editing, and I pay for like $20 a month for that. And granted, it's a terrible price, a lot cheaper, honestly. But I'm not a big fan of subscription-based products. But and then I use Audacity for audio recording and podcast recording. It's also great free software. Please check it out. Check it out. It's very awesome. I've used it for many years.
We're using Audacity right now.
Exactly. It's a lovely free program, and I think everyone should use it if they're not able to get Adobe Audition or Pro Tools or something like that. But other than that, I think for the average Brickfilmer these days, I think you should definitely start off. There's a lot of free programs online, and definitely in the App Store for your iPhone. Like I said before, Stop Motion Studio. It's a free app for your iPhone. I think you're able to animate in there, and I think you're definitely able to edit as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But if not, you can definitely use iMovie on your iPhone. I know a lot of your filmers that use that, and you're able to use that on your Mac, MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, any type of Mac computer. It is automatically installed onto your computer, so use what you can. For your PC users out there, I believe Windows Live Movie Maker is still on there. I could be very wrong.
It is, and despite popular belief, I still use it. Funnily enough.
What? No,
I know it's crazy.
I did not know that. How? Well, let's get this topic going. How do you use it? What do you do?
So I'm probably overworking my process, and it can definitely be slimmed down. But basically, what I do is I use Dragonframe as well to capture the frames, and then I move the frames over to Movie Maker, and that is the part where I sync the voices.
Really?
Yeah, I know. It's crazy, isn't it? I've really got to change my ways, but then I export that as the video into my editing software, and I go from there.
That's interesting. Wow, I did not know that, dude. We're learning things as we do this podcast. Yeah, that's awesome.
It seems like probably quite a basic thing, but you could it still definitely works. So,
right. So tell us, since you already told us you use Windows Live Movie Maker, what else do you use besides that in Dragonframe?
So I use something called Sony Movie Studio.
Interesting.
And
yes.
It's basically Sony Vegas.
Classic.
But it's what is it? It's I don't know if Sony Vegas is subscription based these days, but Sony Movie Studio is a one-off purchase. It was £20, I think, on Amazon, so it's pretty inexpensive.
Yeah, it's fairly cheap. I've used it in the past, and it's a dumbed down version of Sony Vegas. I think the only thing you're not allowed to do in Sony Movie Studio is masking, and but it's still a great program because it has that timeline based and editing process, and it's very useful to learning how to use timelines. And if you ever want to use Adobe Premiere or any other editing software, Sony Vegas or Sony Movie Studio is a great starting tool.
Yeah, and I think the masking I actually do in HitFilm these days, but basically Sony Movie Studio's got all the tools that you might need as particularly a starter out or intermediate animator. The more specialized you get in certain areas, there's different programs you can pick up, which I'm sure. We're going to do a couple or maybe an episode on CGI later on, so we'll touch base a bit more on the sort of programs we use for CGI later. But yeah, basically those are my core programs. So I go DragonFrame, and DragonFrame actually is, I basically only started using DragonFrame when I got my latest camera, because as I said in previous episodes, I used to press the shutter switch, so that didn't send to my laptop straight away, so that's when I started off using Movie Maker and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's interesting, because now that you brought up the shutter switch and all that, if you do not have like a animation software or anything like that, the only way you're able to shoot is shooting blind, and I think the best tool to shoot blind with is definitely a camera remote. So if you have a camera, like a nice digital camera that's was made in the last couple of years or so, or even recently, it should have a camera remote on them, and you're just able to press a button on that remote and not having to put your hands on the camera at all. So that will avoid all camera shake if possible. So definitely check that out as well.
It's definitely something you want to research, especially if you're looking to invest in a camera. Like a couple of things I'd say for longevity of use is definitely check out, can I use a remote with this?
Yeah.
Because that's a big one you want to use. And also check out what the supported devices are on a program like DragonFrame. Because even though if you're not necessarily looking to get it straight away, maybe in a couple of years' time, you might be able to jump on it a bit more. And I'm definitely going to mention this because it's the way I got into DragonFrame. They do a student discount. So for all of you students out there,
I think it's maybe for us Americans, I think it's like $150 or even $100 for student discount. So if you're in college, definitely check that out.
It was quite a bit of money off, because I was like, oh, DragonFrame that's expensive. That's way in the future. But then I found out they did a student discount, and yeah, all of a sudden I found myself jumping on that bandwagon much quicker. So I guess we're at the 27-minute mark now. I guess we want to start winding down. Have you got any last sort of big tips you want to give to people when it comes to equipment usage?
Yeah, you mentioned HitFilm a little earlier, and I think that's a great free software. If you're definitely wanting to use like Adobe Premiere and After Effects later in life, HitFilm is such a great free tool to learn and use and make films with for Brickfilms or live action, and they have a bunch of tutorials on their YouTube channel. So it's a free software. All you need is a computer and I think maybe an account, and that's free too. So definitely check that out and try it out. Experiment with it because it's lovely. I know you use it, Tom, and I think Matt uses it too for his visual effects. And you can do a lot of timeline editing in there as well, and use it for Brickfilm editing. So it's a great free tool to use.
There is a massive number of free programs out there. One which we haven't mentioned is the one I use is called GIMP. And that is basically a substitute for Photoshop. But like we mentioned earlier, Audacity, that is probably top 10 free programs of all time.
I think that's right. That's definitely true.
And it's definitely possible. I mean, don't ever feel that you need all this expensive programs and cameras and whatnot to make a good film. It's definitely possible to make some great films, actually, just basically all on free software.
Yeah, I think the moral of this story is equipment, it doesn't matter. If you tell a great story, if you able to show it through your film, I think that's all that matters.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's a lovely way to finish this episode, I think.
I think so too.
So yeah, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode. It's been me, Tom, from Scorch Bricks, and I've been joined by my co-host Jared from Dude Brick. And yeah, thanks for hanging out, guys. And we'll be back same time, same place next week.
That's right. We'll see you guys next week.